let's just jump right into it. BJ, we're here, and here's Sarah. And
Hello.
Hey,
I'll clean this one up a little bit
hey, good
while you're
morning.
talking.
Thanks for coming on, Sarah. It's awesome, especially kind of short
No
notice.
problem. No problem.
Yeah, good. Gives you a chance to get that audio equipment out again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I sort of miss those. I miss those sessions that we
Yeah,
had.
me
Those were good.
too. I get really tired of doing audio editing. I don't have enough time for that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Steve, do you edit these at all after we do them, or you just kind of stream them out and that's what they
I
are?
clean them. I just clean up the beginning and the end. I don't get in and pull out. So it's more tedious for the user. The next piece would be the next level would be to take them as they are, but try to highlight and put in some time codes for different topics or things. But that adds a bunch of time, and editing a podcast is a lot of work. So we just kind of dump the live issues and do that. And it's not the most efficient, but it can, it works.
My latest favorite podcast for when I'm out wandering around the neighborhood is Ear Hustle. It's a couple of people that it's a lady that volunteers at San Quentin State Prison in California, and then I don't want to give it away in case people listen, but a convict that works in their audio lab, and the two of them do a podcast. They were talking the other day about the podcast is mostly about life in prison and dispelling stereotypes and rumors and bias and everything you see on TV. They were talking about for an hour long podcast, they were taking somewhere in the range of 10 hours of audio and cutting that down into their hour. The podcast is fascinating, but I can't imagine getting all that video and going through it all, or all that audio. I mean, going through it all. It'd be, oof, that's rough.
yeah.
Yeah, there are ways to tag it as you go along, but that requires that helps if you've got an editor or somebody listening in and they're tagging it, and that's one thing. But if you're doing it while and trying to stay present, it's hard.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Let's get into first, Sarah. I was gonna say, I was thinking about this morning. I think it's possible that you hold the distinction of being the very last person to get their Cap 3 certificate. Of course, they fired all the people that could tell us that for sure.
It's true
But
though.
yeah, I think you were the last one.
Yeah, because I got the letter or the email from Shelly, and then I think like 2 days later everything was shut down, and I was actually doubting whether or not I should send it in right away because I'm like, I don't know, is it good enough? Is it okay? And yeah, then 2 days later, I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I guess I picked a good time.
yeah. For what it's worth, anyway.
Yeah, I know. And
It's a
now I
nice.
hate the
It
system.
never expires.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I miss it.
it's just giving you the kudos, but
Well, that's one of the things.
Thanks.
One of the things here in Arizona. I don't know if he's going to continue to do it, but the last cap-like thing that we had here was, well, it's going to be a year and a half now.
yeah,
It'll be 2 years in December. Or was it last
Hobson,
December? God,
Eric
No, it
Hobson
was
put that
last
on.
year.
it was last year. Yeah, God. Yeah, it's become a blur. I had my JV coach, who's outstanding. He came with me, and he's back in Colorado, and I'm going to miss him this year because he should be on the 30 under 30 list if we have one on the coaching side, because he's just really terrific, and he's 21 and old beyond his years, but he knew everybody back at Colorado Springs before the changes.
He's a punk. 21.
Oh yeah,
He's a kid.
Yeah, no, he would practice with the boys, and of course he's quite skillful, and he's a setter. So he helped my setter this year coming back. He helped a lot, and I can kind of guide him a little bit. But he's in club now, and he's pretty good, and he's coming to the gym a couple times. We had to have a little talk. I said, you can't kind of walk in here like you know everything and tell everybody to do everything. It's that's my job, and he got it. He will be fine. But it was one of those. Yeah, I just want to make sure they understand that how serious we are. I'm like, let me do that. You just play and help them get better.
Yeah.
That's a conversation I was just having with Lauren Anderson this morning. We had him on a couple weeks ago, Sarah, and he's starting a new job, and we talk a lot about how to make improvements in our programs. And we're finding, uh, maybe Lauren knew this before I did, because I haven't been great at it. But you have to coach coaches almost like you coach players, just one thing at a time. He wrote this just incredible, a critique of a program that he's working with, and I'm reading through and going, "Oh, these are all such great ideas." And then I thought, how do you get that stuff across to them without killing them? And that's a struggle for both. I know it is for Lauren. He's considering it, and I think he's thinking about it at a higher level than I am. I know I'm trying to go a little slower too with Coach Ed, but interesting
Well,
thoughts.
so Sarah, what's going on in your world?
Oh boy. Well, I've been reffing. I ref high school because I like to watch my kids that I've coached over the years, playing at a little bit higher of a level because most of the kids I coach are in 7th and 8th grade. So, been reffing. I had my last match on Thursday, so I'm done for the season. Um, so that's been great. I got to some of my kids, man, they've gotten so much better over the years. And, most of my kids made their JV team as freshmen. So that was, or varsity. I had one make varsity. So it was kind of like a proud mama moment, mama coach moment, checking out my players. And then, yeah, I have been bombarded with lessons and camps. I've seen an increase in interest. Unfortunately, I don't have the space to match it, but I'm working on that on the side, trying to find my own place for volleyball because I wish I could do this as a full-time job, and I probably could if I had my own place. And yeah, and then today I have 4 hours of lessons and then open house for 4 hours. So it's time for club season, and this is the worst time where it's like these couple weeks of the before tryouts. But uh, yeah, it's starting to get a little crazy, and every year I'm like, why do I do this again? Why do I really want to coach club? I don't know if I want to. Every year, I doubt whether or not I want to come back to it and just, be on my own and do my own little stuff on the side. But it's very rewarding in the end. So, uh, and then every time, I see, I coach a kid that's 11 years old and they haven't done club before, and then this year they're going to do club, and I go, man, I can't wait to get you in like a couple years when you're 14, and so then it drags me back into clubs. So I continue to do it. And then I'm like, well, could I do 2 teams? So I go from like not wanting to do it to how many teams can I do this year without losing my sanity? So
What's a lesson look
yeah.
like for you?
So typically I rarely do one-on-one lessons. It's pretty rare. Yesterday was one of those instances, but um it was more so because I didn't have anybody available to help because it was homecoming weekend. But I will typically have one player and then one person helping me. So usually it's like a kid that I used to coach, or a kid that can't afford lessons. So I have them come to my lessons to help out, whether it's a setter or someone to serve or whatever. So I have a kid today that's going to be at 3 hours of my 3 of my lessons, who's there for a group lesson, but she's a setter. So I'm like, hey, you want to stay and set for these other lessons because I got some hitters. So yeah, it's pretty rare that I'll do one-on-one, but I usually ask the kids, what is it that they're wanting to work on, and I get a general, oh, I want to work on hitting, or I want to work on serving, and so I'm not one of those that's like, let's just serve for an hour. I do is serve and having to run into the court to play defense, or if they want to do hitting, it's okay, transitioning off the net and then getting ready to hit, but then you have to go from hitting right into a blocking position. So try to make it, I'm big advocate of trying to make things as game like as possible, and I do that in my lessons. So there are times where I look over at another court where coach is hitting on the same side of the net and a very blocked type of training, and I find that the kids find it unique, that it's something different. It's they start using their volleyball IQ a little bit more, or maybe adding some pages to their volleyball IQ. When we practice serving, I sometimes I'll even use a whistle, so that way they have the feeling of, okay, a whistle was blown, now it's time for me to serve. I'm not going back there just to serve, and giving them, thinking about, okay, on the other side of the net, we're in rotation one. The setter is running from their right back. I want to try to serve right in that line that she's running in. So I know we don't really like to have like vertical targets, want to have more flat targets, but I'll put a ball card out there and go, I want you to imagine this is the setter. So thinking about that and trying to get it as close to the ball card as possible. So really having every contact have a purpose, not just going back there to do super finite, nitty gritty technique stuff. I'm not the best technical coach because I think that every person and every body is different, and so if you're passing nails and you're taking most of the balls outside of your midline, like, I don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I could fix the little things here and there, but most of it ends up being more game like, and thinking more about the bigger picture and the volleyball IQ as opposed to technical trading.
That's cool. Yeah, now I want to come and take a lesson.
You should. I was actually given the kids that work in the facility that I have my lessons at. They were around yesterday, and they were helping me shag because they were bored. So I had them serve, and they were serving a couple balls just for fun. They have no idea how to play volleyball, and I'm like, oh, you should try doing this. And what if you did this? Maybe this will get better. I mean, kids that have no interest in playing volleyball, but any opportunity I get to coach, I'll take it. I actually have and yesterday I had a little kid, 4 years old, running onto my court while I was in the middle of my lesson, and he was just literally taking my ball and then going on to another court. And I'm like, excuse you, like, don't take my balls. I have a bunch of those USA volleyball, the beach balls. I have like tons of, well, I'm running out because I keep giving them to people that keep stealing my balls. And usually they're little kids. And so I'm like, well, here you go. So I swapped it out with him, and I said, you could get to keep this. You don't have to give it back to me. You get to keep it, but you have to promise you're going to play volleyball when you get older. And, of course, parents are usually like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. I'm like, they're like literally $1. It's fine. But yeah, so I'm trying to find little ways like that to also grow the game with kids that are younger, because, I know that when I was living in the Midwest in Chicago, like, people start volleyball very, very young. And, that's why there is, that area and that part of the country is as good as they are. But out here, maybe you'll get a couple people that are starting at 10 and 11, but for the most part, people are starting, 13, 14. So
And let me
I'm like, oh,
qualify
if I
that.
can get
That's
a couple.
girls.
Yeah. Girls. Yes. Girls. Yep.
My boys started, some of them at 17. So
Yep.
always fun.
Yeah. That's very true for our part of town. Yeah. For in Arizona. So yeah, I mean, my dream would be to have like an 8 and under team. But there's no even like, I mean, even with, for the Arizona region, there isn't like we only have 12 and under. So it's not like we have 8 and under teams like you would probably experience, in the Midwest. So.
Yeah, tens. We have in Badger, I believe now we have a tens regional tournament, but I don't think it goes any lower than
Ugh,
that.
And I don't think Great
but
Lakes does,
still.
although I haven't been back in a while. But by the time I left, it was usually 12U, but and maybe 10U from time to time, but not as much. But that may have grown because I've been out of there for 5 years almost now, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, here, especially at my high school. Now, some high schools, in fact, we've made progress. There's a small club that's run by the now coach of our girls side, who I just finished working with. I did the JV this year. Next year I won't be doing that, but he formed a club and had three girls teams. Like a 12, a 14, and an 18U kind of thing. And he's formed a boys club where the boys can kind of afford it. It's not super cheap. Well, I would say it's relative to all the other clubs, it's something they can afford and do. And now that I have maybe 6-7 guys who played club coming back, not super high level, but it helps a lot because I got a better starting point.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. So, Sarah, what are your kids that are coming in right now for lessons? What are they looking for? I mean, the club season's coming up, so they're putting final touches on, or what's going on?
I think a lot of it, and I try to talk to the parents about this. I'm not going to be able to fix anything, a week before club. Like nothing is going to fix that. Some of them I've been doing lessons with for, months now. So it's a matter of just, continuing that. But I think a lot of it is what I usually do leading up into tryouts is talking to them about if this happens in tryouts, what's your response? Because you're not going to have coaches necessarily giving you tons of feedback because they're evaluating you amongst your teammates. And so I try to give them, some self problem solving skills. Okay, so when you serve the ball and you see that there's backspin on it, what does that mean to you? If you are serving the ball and there's a very rainbow like serve and it's very easy, what does that mean? So giving them some tools of being able to think critically about what happened. If the ball did this, here's a list of things that probably could have happened. And then I had a girl yesterday. She just started playing. She's a freshman. Didn't make her high school team, but still wants to play, which is great, which always makes me happy. And so she's very new to the sport, but has a really good arm swing. Just her timing is off because she hasn't played enough. So, we worked on it yesterday with, just working on her. She's very coachable, like very quick learner, working on her last two steps because she'll only take two steps sometimes. And, and then not finish that third, that final step with her left foot. And I showed her arm swing. Her arms go so far back. I mean, it's great arm swing. I'm like, I wish I could bottle this up and explain this to other people. But, she's very nervous about club because she's like, I don't have a lot of experience and I didn't make my high school team. So I said, here are the things that if I'm a good coach and, not to say everybody is, but for me, if I'm looking and evaluating and I see those monster arm swing going back, as a coach, I'm like, okay, I can work with that. Okay. If it's just timing, to me, I think that's a little bit easier to fix than like not being able to hit it over the net at 15 or 16, or it's constantly going in the bottom of the net. Hers, she's like so close to it and she's kind of long and lanky. And I'm like, you'll make a team. And she's not looking to make like a top team. She's like, I just want to play. So that's more so what it is. It's right now it's, okay, getting ready for club tryouts. If you're not getting feedback, what does this mean? What should you look like? How are you going to get a coach's attention? How do you work with another person on your team, in a drill that you're in? And that's kind of been my focus. I think, some people may go to other coaches that are looking for quick fixes that I'm like, there's no point in doing that. It's not going to change anything right now. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. So now I'm in the high school age because we can't do lessons for 14 and under right now because Phoenix ruins everything for us in Tucson. They have a blackout period because Phoenix coaches were creating their own teams outside before tryouts even started. So
Imagine that.
but now, yeah, but now I'm doing high school kids right now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the lesson thing has always sort of bothered me, and whenever I've done them, it's just been because I enjoyed it. Well, the same thing for me. Get if you want to learn something, find three other players, and then most of mine occurred during the summer. Like we either meet at the beach or we meet on the grass with the four of you, and then there's so much you can do immediately that's much more game like. And you can have server, blocker, setter, hitter, and you're essentially playing doubles, but you could be working on those whole skills. That's you mentioned blocked, and I'm working on changing my language to say more often whole skills versus part skills. The part skills are the ones, the out of context skills are the ones I think that are least helpful. And putting that putting that skill into context. What's the fancy word, Steve? Uh, Decomposed. When you're teaching skills that are decomposed, that are all broken up, they don't reassemble themselves very well because
It's
of like
interesting
what
though
you said.
about that. There
Yeah,
was there've been some studies, and again, when I say there have been some studies, the problem is if you pick a couple of studies, you can prove any point you want in this game. So,
right.
Very true.
and we see that with coaches. Kind of, I can defend what I'm doing because I can find three
Right.
studies that, and you got to kind of look at the bulk of them, and yeah, you are going to develop a little bit of a coaching opinion or approach based on what you hear, what you learn, who you learn from, all of that stuff. But there are some studies that are looking at younger kids and saying, decomposed skills seem to have just as much stickiness with really young players, let's say 6, 8. Once they hit 10 or a little bit above, then whole skills seem to have a little bit more retention after they've been in, with a little more transfer. But again, that can be used to support breaking it down a little bit for kids. But then, kids like to play, and so figuring out how to get them to take a part skill or whatever and play with it soon is going to keep them more enjoying the sport and wanting to come back and having, as you started off with, a whole day, making it fun. And that's important because they won't come back if it's drudgery.
Yeah, there's a little bit of support to show that doing something that's decomposed um, can help a very new beginner. I think the issue becomes you get you get these kids that are, you know, I've watched some practices of high school or college where they're breaking skills down, and these are skills that these kids have done for 10 years, 8 years by now. It's
Yeah.
I think that's where, as coaches, it's just easier for us to get into that. We like the control so much of practice; we want to control it. Where it'd be much better for those kids to be more out of control, so that they
Right.
learn how to control. But yeah, I mean, for the ultimate beginner, if you don't know how to move at all, I remember Carl McGowan he used to say all the time, um, work on that. We used to call it blocked, but it'd be a decomposed. Work on that part until they can just barely do it, until they're doing it a few times out of 10, and then it's time to graduate them into whole, into whole skills. But I mean, that's why I get away from the one-on-one lesson, because there's not a lot you can do that's whole
Well, they're
there.
fads too. I asked you, I think, yeah, I did it by text. And Sarah, maybe you've got some thoughts on this. I am seeing lots and lots of mostly opposing setters because I don't teach it and my kids don't play club, but I'm seeing a lot of kids who are clearly coming from club, setters taking off every set off their right foot, driving their left knee up. And it's every set. It doesn't matter if they're standing there waiting for it; they'll still jump up off their right leg. And I get it. That can be a really useful skill, but on every touch, it kind of like, man, and again, I'm open to those things. That's why I try to stay open to, okay, is that better? But it just looks like they've been drilled, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Yeah, as soon as you said drilled, I was like, ooh, like I've seen those kids. I've seen it, you know. It's very predictable too. Um, but I do this with when I'm giving lessons to kids, especially if they play at a different club, or maybe I know the coach at the high school that they're at or middle school that they're at, and some people are like, you have to take every ball at your midline, and it's midline or nothing. And so I kind of tell the kids that I'm coaching, you know, you got to do whatever your coach says. If it's not me, it's someone else. They're going to want something different. But I am less concerned about whether you take it on your midline or you are going off of your right foot. I care more about, are you getting the ball where it needs to be? Are you able to, think off the cuff and take the ball outside of your body and be comfortable with that, and testing that sort of your physical limitations or the lack thereof of being able to take a ball that's not normal, because in a lot of those where it looks like they've been drilled, they've gotten the same ball over and over and over again, and it's not, for me at least at 14s, it's not going to look like that. I had a girl giving a lesson to at 14, and most of the balls I was giving her was like middle of the court, because I'm like, that's where most of them are going to go and where they should go at that age group. Um, but I want them to be creative and kind of, try to test what they can do and not just go, it's this way or the highway. I'm not that, every person is different. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about drilled, like they look like they've been drilled. Kind of loses some some personality to how you take the ball too. Because I know as a libero when I was playing, like I don't probably didn't look very drilled. Um, I looked comfortable because I was taking the ball the way I felt was best to take the ball. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's my new favorite. It's probably the first thing that I'm saying to coaches is we need to build their range. They need a range of movement. They need a range of timing. They need a range of skill, and those things don't happen when you give them the same ball over and over again. Building that range is important. Um, so let's get into the one of the bigger topics that I wanted to get into today was we've kind of touched on this already, is when we as coaches are running the show and we're in charge. A lot of times it becomes somewhat drill sergeant and soldiers. I mean, I guess I don't really like military analogs, but or analogies, but that's what it looks like a lot of times to me. And so my question for you is keeping how to keep your practice, your tryout, your pre-match, how to keep all that stuff fun without being fake fun and still learning.
yeah, I think when I hear like being like a drill sergeant, I kind of look at myself more as like a facilitator of the sport. Like, I am teaching them, but I'm also allowing them to kind of, take some ownership of their practice and what they learn. Um, and a lot of it is what it is that I'm asking the players to do. So if I'm asking for perfect passes, that's already going to have a very drill sergeant D. It's my way or the highway. It has to be perfect. And it's not going to be very fun when it's not like that. So I don't like to pigeonhole myself into that position to be that sort of coach. I don't want to be that coach. What I really try to do is focus more on that process part of, and it's really hard to undo that out of kids, like looking at the process. I have kids that when they hit, they did their arm swing, their timing was great, and they, it sails out of bounds and they get all frustrated, and I'm like cheering for them because they actually were, they got their whole hand on the ball and, got some great spin on it. It was really good. So a lot of it for me is focusing on the process and kind of balancing out some stuff that maybe they find a little silly, but also, recognizing that people want to win points, they want to score. Um, I think you're able to get out of that drill sergeant like mindset if you let the kids. I'm not saying like roll the ball out and let them play, but have, like I was saying, like having them have some ownership over the drill, and letting them have fun, whatever they think that is. There's a drill that I do that's and maybe I think I got it from BJ, because I feel like a lot of the stuff I do, I'm like, I remember, I think BJ brought this up one day, or so BJ's like, I think I have at least one drill where I'm like, oh, this is a BJ sort of drill. But we had one, I did a 2 versus 2 process drill where they don't score any points on winning the rally. It was just, did they, they passed themselves and then, set to their partners. So if they did that, they got a point. If the favorite though was, if the other team sends you a free ball back, so that encouraged them to hit a little bit harder, make it a little bit, use their toolbox to go, how can I make them so out of system that they have to send me a free ball back? And watching them kind of like problem solve that was, for me, just, it was so much fun. They enjoyed it. And that, for me, I feel like kind of melts your heart a little bit, seeing them having fun. But if you don't like kids having fun, then I guess you're not going to really like any of my drills. Um, I don't want to be there for 2 hours just screaming at kids. I've already had a long day at work, and it's not what I'm here for. I mean, granted, that's maybe how I was coached, but uh, you know, not also kind of asking the kids too. Maybe it's like one drill I leave open and I'm like, what do you guys want to work on? What drill do you guys want to do? Or here's a deck of cards, pick one, and this is the drill that we're going to do. Um, so really making them a part of the process, a part of their learning, not just here's the instructions that you have to do, really helps with that too. And I have not yet had a kid that thinks that my practices are hard, or not hard. I'd say more like drill sergeant-y,
Right.
yet. Maybe back in the
Awesome.
day before I learned better.
I had
Yeah. No.
a warm up for our 6 minute warm up. So we used to run Mike Hewlett's available drill, basically. Not hitting lines, 3 lines, transitioning off. Everybody approaches, calls their number, setter picks which one they're going to set, kind of thing. And then we did some 6-on-6 play. So now that we've had both of them as possible warm-ups, I let them choose, and it tells you what they want to do because they generally want to play, and that's it gives them a little bit of autonomy, and it also gives them the opportunity to choose something they're having more fun with. So that ought to be a clue for me, right? So that's it is something that giving them that opportunity to show you what they like, then you can kind of build on that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really tough, when I was coaching in high school, I had a whole warm up that was definitely more game like, that had everybody moving, because I find hitting lines just so slow and so boring. And I had a whole, I mean, it was like a choreographed thing, because you have to be careful of people hitting balls back in a certain area and making sure everybody knows what their jobs are. And it was a great way to get, I mean, they got so many hitting reps in it, tons of, there's opportunities for blocking in the warm up. And when you have 6 minutes, you could do a lot of stuff in 6 minutes. And there was so much pushback, that, I got it even when I had some 14s, where my hitting, my warm-ups, for the short amount of time that you have, was definitely more game like, where they're throwing a ball in, they're running it themselves. I'm not sitting there throwing balls in. They can run it themselves. They're working on transitioning off the net and getting ready to run a play, or everybody has a role, you have multiple setters going. And I get pushback sometimes on that, and I think maybe it's more so in the girl side, where they don't want to look, they care more about the way they look to another team, or to other players on the other side of the net. I haven't quite figured that one out. Part of me does say, I'll meet you halfway, and for the beginning of the season, we're going to do, it this way, and then later on, we're going to start transitioning it to more game-like, because it's really hard for I have found for girls to step out of the norm and feel comfortable with doing something a little different, because they don't want to seem like out of place. They care a lot about what their peers think. Um, it, I have not solved that problem. One day I will, just like world hunger. I'll solve it.
Yeah, for younger coaches or coaches, not younger, less experienced coaches. When you see a team come in and they run hitting lines and they're pounding the ball, here's how you ought to think. Said, man, that's pretty. Let's see if you can do it in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
and I know when I see a team that can do that and then they can do it in the game, I'm like, okay, this is going to be tough. And
Yeah.
and that's only about 5% of the time. But when it happens, you're like, all right, I guess they can do this. Most of them can't, and we are not a particularly skilled club. Well, we're in a particularly skilled club this year. But I know there are coaches that played against us. And I'm like, how in the world are these guys playing that well against us? Because, we don't have the approaches. I mean, I have a middle who's just now figuring out that she can approach, but she can play high above the net. And she's got a quick 2 steps to just get up in the air and swing. And she's putting the ball all over the place because we play a lot of random games. And so we can make shots that we used to call them old guy shots, right? Because my son would come in and he'd go, you old guys. When he was 16, he's like, bring him to an open gym with me. And he's like, Dad, you old guys have shots I've never seen before. I'm like, yeah, we do. It's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's bringing it back around to the beginning of season. When we're holding tryouts, we did a lot of doubles and triples and that sort of thing. And if I stepped out to another court or to another gym and then came back, invariably the court coaches had changed that to hitting lines because they want to. And I asked one of the coaches that had been around a long time, like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? I want to see if they can hit. Like, okay, um, how is a perfect pass or a perfect toss and a perfect set helping you figure out if they can hit? They need to hit all the balls that they're going to get. So
Yep.
the ones that are crazy, that's what tells me if they can hit or not. That's, I mean, I know it's fun to get a great pass and a great set, but I think there's like what you were saying, Sarah, about just the challenge of it when your players have some ownership and are challenged some and have to think through it. That to me seems more fun
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's a struggle keeping it fun. I know that players like that challenge. I know they like to have some challenge, and um, obviously being in a game is a lot more challenging. But they do. You can see them get frustrated. So for me, I'm often bringing them back to uh, hey, how are you? How are you feeling? What needs to go better for you here? Are you too worried about the point scoring and not enough about improvement? What types of pep talks are you giving kids that it looks like they're not having much fun?
Yeah. I have that with, I always feel like every year I have 1 or 2 kids that have. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I have way more than 1 or 2 kids that are the perfectionist already at 13 and 14. And I will kind of bring him to the side. I can think of one kid in particular who every time she made a mistake, she was like on the verge of tears every time. And it wasn't me because I'm not that coach. And everybody knows that I am not that coach that's going to scream at you for making a mistake or hitting it out of bounds. And so I kind of try to, explain the good of what happens. So let's say they hit it out of bounds. That's pretty easy to fix. It's your timing. You got to get on top of the ball a little bit more. You know, trying to show them or explain to them the good in what happened. But then also, like you were saying, like BJ, like finding out what is going to make them feel like they have a win. And usually I have a pretty good rapport with my kids where I can, ask them like, what is it that you want to work on? Or what do you want to focus on in this one thing? Do you maybe need to take a break from hitting? Because hitting every ball out of bounds, I'm sure is going to take a little bit of a toll on you. So maybe we have you play back row for a little bit. So I try to find ways where every kid feels included, or we modify a drill based on, the circumstances that we have. So if we have a player that is really struggling with defense, like, maybe we give them tons of reps and have the balls go all to them. And then if you're able to get get a kill out of a transition, the biggest, they're the champion of it is the person that dug the ball. And so giving them those little wins to be like, you have made a significant impact on this play. Way to go. Next ball. I try really hard to balance those emotions a little bit, especially if I see kids. I have a lot of perfectionists. I'll change the drill. We'll just stop it. We'll do different drill. We'll take a quick little doubles break. If they're particularly frustrated with the constraints that I put on it, or maybe I'll change the constraints if nobody is being successful in it. Bringing it back a couple notches and going, all right, like what's the bare minimum that we can do today? And I also, a lot of times I have an idea of how my players are feeling that day because we do a mood check-in board every practice at the beginning. So I could tell if so-and-so is, in the red, she has her little name tag, she puts it in the red. I know she's already having a rough day. It's probably not the day that I'm going to, make sure, kind of giving her a little bit more feedback. I might just really be encouraging more than I already am to her based on that. So, I try really hard to modify those drills and make sure I'm communicating with my players and build a rapport with them that, this is not the place where you have to worry about making mistakes because that's why we're here.
Yeah, I've toyed with that green, yellow, red idea. The way I would do it if I were in charge, I think, be one of two ways. I'd, I'd either, like you said, have a name tag that you could change to put whatever color on it, or not a name tag, but something that just had there for the day, or just on the whiteboard, everybody's name is listed. You put a check, for green, it's coach me all day. Red, it's I don't want any coaching today, and yellow is ask me, ask me if
Mm-hmm.
I want some coaching. Um, I'd really like to get that implemented just to meet their expectation, give them again it's autonomy, which we know from Dr. Wolf's work. It's really helpful. I wonder if that could increase their enjoyment level. What are you noticing about that? Because I haven't implemented it yet.
So what we do is I have a whiteboard where I have like little pieces, like color coding at the very top of the whiteboard. So it's green, yellow, red. And they have magnetic things where I let them write down their names and they could decorate it because, giving them autonomy and ownership over the process. So when they come into practice, the first thing they do, put their bags down, they take their name tag and they put it wherever they feel that day. And so it's more so about like how they're feeling, maybe not necessarily about the level of coaching, but I also kind of feel like they're kind of one and the same at some point. But what I find is when after everybody I have everybody just play doubles as people are coming into practice. And once everybody's in, we talk about what the practice is going to be like that day. We actually look at that board and I will check and we'll talk about it together. I'll be like, hey, Peyton, I see you're in the red. Is everything okay? She's like, oh, I had a really bad test today, or I got into a fight with my mom on the way here, and so I think it kind of humanizes each other. So we're a little bit kinder to each other as teammates, and you're like, wow, like I'm also not feeling so great. So, um, you know, or it's okay to feel kind of crappy for some practices. And then also like, I'll also talk to the kids that have green and be like, what happened today? What happened? Oh, I got an A+ on my test and, I got some extra allowance money because I did this. And so we also celebrate the green of the people that are having good days. So I think like being open about it. And I think, especially in today's age of some, serious mental health crises that are going on, that it's really important to talk about that stuff, and, we just spend maybe like, 90 seconds, 2 minutes on it, and we leave it up at the board the whole time. So it's up on the side, you can see it. So, maybe if, Peyton is kind of talking back or being like, okay, you look at it and go, man, she's having a rough day. I'm not going to take it personally. Just move on, but I also take that into, okay, I could see who's in the red. Maybe I had a certain stuff that I was going to do, but I know that the person in the red really likes this one drill that she always is asking, can we do this one? Can we do this one? Then I might change it,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that they're having an opportunity to, sometimes I'll ask them like, hey, did you get moved a little bit to the yellow? Like, and sometimes they do. And sometimes they'll go up there and they'll actually move their name tag, because they feel like they're in a little bit better of a mood. But that's kind of how I've been utilizing it. I've been using it for 4 years now, 5 years now. And every, kids that I've had before in previous years that I have again, they're like, oh, are we going to do the name tag? I've had kids from that made other teams that'll come in and they want their own name tag. So they'll like put it up on the board too, even though they're not on our team. So it's kind of been a thing where people actually look forward to it and, really utilize it as a good tool for me and for their teammates.
We've covered this idea a little bit before, and I have a mentor of mine who uses the term ooching, which I really like a lot. And, you ooch in a direction. So I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet for up on the board for a whole bunch of reasons. Not most of them probably not valid. But what I let the girls know is like, look, you may have a bad day. If it's a bad day or if it's a good day, let me know, and we'll modify things. And I do have a girl come up and say, man, I've just, are you, I'm like, are you okay? "Oh, no, I had a rough day today." Okay. All right. Well, do what you can. And hopefully this will, and I tell them all, I really want our sessions to be the best part of your day. It may not be, but that's what I'd like them to be. And so if it's not being the best part of your day, come see me and we'll talk about how we can make it that way. And, but I think it helps for them to at least have confidence that you care.
Yeah, someone described it to me, and this is probably not a new concept to either one of you, but our ability to work or our ability to think or to engage is different every day. So a player may be at 50% of her regular ability for the day because of, like Sarah was saying, tests or bad day or whatever it was. Well, then give me all of that 50%, or give the not me but give the team all of that 50% for today. And then, tomorrow we'll reset to whatever level you can come in with tomorrow. I think just even the recognition of that, for players, has to help some. Do you think, Sarah? I mean, just noticing that.
Oh yeah. I absolutely. I also put my own up there because there are days that I have a really rough day of practice, and I try really hard not to let my mood from the previous stuff, impact me at practice, because usually it's the best part of my day. But I'm human, so there have been times where I put my name in between yellow and red, and the kids will go, "What happened? Are you okay?" And like, "Oh, it was just a rough day." Like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, we all have had rough days, but um, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it does develop a little bit of a conversation and really humanizes our teammates and our lives. And I love that. I've been actually going to use that. I think that practice should be the best part of your day, because for me it is, and I'm coaching. I'm not even getting a chance to play, but whatever I need to do to make that happen, I'm going to do it. if, as long as it kind of falls in line with what we're working on that day. So even if it's a slight modification, you know, having them have that opportunity to, you know, have a win for the day is important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be soft. I mean, I don't, we used to have the light practice or the silly practice or whatever. I still feel like I want to get something out of practice. Um, it also feels to me like if you just have to read the team a little bit, you can't whip them through the hardest practice of the year. It, you know, that's another thing that game like play will do. You know, it doesn't really ever have to be much harder than the game, and the game isn't so stressful that you know you're going to hurt players or at least not intentionally tire them out. Um, that's a good gauge or a good way of gauging the practice. But um, I've gotten away from that light or goofy. But our players. Well, here's a good example from this year. I ran a practice for our younger players, one of the JV teams, and you know, for me, a typical practice, it's we play some one-on-one. So there's 6 games of one-on-one going on, and then sort of a modified doubles, serve and pass to hit, um, then some triples, speed, and you know, always working on a different skill. After about an hour, one of the players said to another player, "Man, this practice is harder than our conditioning days." I'm like, you guys are conditioning? Like, yeah, once a week or once every other week, we'll run and do all of our conditioning exercises, and like, well, and this is harder than that? Yeah, but it's a lot more fun. Like, well, okay. So you're having a good time and you're learning and you're getting more winded than your conditioning day. I think that's a win. And they were, you know, they're like, yeah, this is fun, you know.
But that gets
Um,
into weird stuff. I mean, it's like, I had to walk away from a coaching job because the AD came in to my second practice and said, "Why aren't you dynamic stretching to start your practice?" And I said, "Because we're playing volleyball." And I just looked at him and he said, "Well, don't you believe in conditioning?" I said, "Sure. What do you mean?" And, well, this and this. I'm like, "Well, no, that's not going to help us in volleyball." "Well, what about plyometrics?" "Oh, yeah, you could do that, but not now. We got to learn how to play volleyball." And it was like once that conversation was over, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm out of here." And he had somebody in mind, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And they've done really well. Good for them. And I'm sure, you know, eh, the absolute worst drill-based coaching that you could see that you would go, "Oh my God, I could do so much better," can still develop you a really good program if you have athletes who like to play and they can make that. So, sometimes we come across as, well, that's not going to get it done. It's like it gets it done. It just takes longer. It's not as much fun. It's not as creative. And maybe in a very awkward, weird situation, your team might not be able to deal with a really random play as well as the next team. And how do you notice that? No one would notice that other than, knowledgeable coaches who kind of go, "Yeah, wow, that was look at all the weird shots in that play," and they're still playing. So yeah, it's
they're eventually going to play, no matter
yeah,
what you do.
yeah, you got to play.
They're, and Sarah, you'll know the club I'm talking about here from the Midwest, but I won't say their
I
name. But
already know.
there was a team that overtrained. They were practicing 24, 28, 30 hours a week, and they put out all these drill videos of these weirdo drills they're doing. What people don't know about those teams, because it's not, nobody wants to see just teams playing. What most coaches don't know about those teams is that they do those crazy drills for about half the time, and then the other half of the time they're playing. So if you have the best athletes and they're playing for 16 hours a week, they're getting a lot of volleyball in, and
Yep.
those drills may or may not be helping at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I
Yeah.
could have. I mean, I don't wish that I had that much time especially with that age group. But also, like, yeah, you're right. If you are going to be in the gym that often, of course you're going to get better. And you already got the top of the top over there. So what do you expect? But
Right.
most people, like, it's kind of like training in reality of, I get the kids here two, hopefully twice a week, but maybe three if their parents are able to give them a ride, and, you know, uh, getting that precious time um, leading up into the first tournament. Like, I'll take what I can get, I guess. But yeah,
My
How
first
about
I know.
great,
your
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
My first Great Lakes, when I was just starting coaching, they had this thing they would do in December, and Leskevich was there, and it was a long time ago. So he was a younger guy, and I was a younger guy, and he said, "How do you get great teams?" He goes, "How do you develop great teams?" He goes, "Get great players." He said, "We make a 10% difference if you've got great athletes." It's like my boys last year, we made the playoffs. We're like, all right, first time we were playing our play-in match. They said, walked in the gym, and their right side was 7'2". It was like, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. And they played pretty. He wasn't their best player, but he was a good player, and he's probably a really good player this year. So it's one of those. Okay, guys, let's see what you can do against this, and it's a great learning experience. But you know, getting great athletes, getting kids. I mean, I'm thrilled when I get a boy at 6 foot. And most clubs are, what do you mean? That's a libero. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'll take 6 foot.
What about, and I know you and I have probably had this discussion before, either at one of the cap sessions, but I just want to touch on your variety of drills. What's, do you know how many different drills you run right now?
I love this because I already know where BJ is going to go with this. Is that he has like one drill that he does, and then he just has modifications to it. I'm
No,
like,
I'm
I already
I'm
know where this
letting
is
someone
going.
thunder. You go for it.
I probably have, like, I mean, I actually have because I'm very organized. I have a book of, team drills where it's just different. It's 6-on-6 play if we're working on team stuff, with different rules to it. I'd say on that, like, I probably got about like seven, um, like 6-on-6 drills that I'll probably use one or two of them, like a practice or a week where it's, I have a core group of ones that I really like to do. Um, but when it comes to like small group stuff, I probably use a lot of the same drills, because there's a lot more reps going. So I'll break everybody up into three groups, doing something similar, but, across the net, or, you know, one group is doing passing only and the other group is doing blocking or whatever it is. Those ones I probably have like probably four or five that I heavily rely on, but just change uh,
Yeah.
the scoring system for it. But a lot of my 6-on-6 drills are more fun, but there's definitely like a fun element to it because I don't want to just play 6-on-6. Um, that the kids actually enjoy it, and they're always like, can we play secret squirrel? And it's the other team has certain cards that they're trying, skills that they're trying to work on, and I'll make that harder throughout the year. But maybe it's like they're just trying to do like trying to get a kill out of a second ball play, like a broken play, a second ball is coming over, and so like they're trying to figure out, like they're thinking about strategizing, like what's going on the other side, what are they trying to do to score a point, or I have ones where I have cheap, where like the other team just sends over like cheap, dirty crap coming over the net, where, they're really competitive and being like, yeah, go ahead, give us crap. We don't care. We're going to, try to score out of it. So most of my drills have some element of humor and fun to it, but secretly learning. They don't realize it, that they're secretly learning. Um, yeah, I actually do still have, and I haven't opened them in years, but those drill books of like 100 best drills. Like I used to do that when I first started coaching. I was like, I want to be a good coach, and I'm a learner. Like I love learning. I wish I could be in school for the rest of my life and get paid to do it, but I can't. So I took it what I could from it. Um, Or there are times where I'll have dreams about really good drills. I had one the other day and I actually used it at a lesson. I had 3 kids in a lesson, so I was like, I'm going to try this drill right now. And it worked out really well. But yeah, I'd say I probably got like 10, 15 total that I use that are pretty much like in the rotation somehow. So,
Yeah, it's what
Doug
sells
Beal,
better,
Steve.
101 great drills or now see what you need today is the BuzzFeed the 7 drills you'll ever need, and maybe
right.
somebody will read that.
Well, I like to, one of the things that, and I know I talked to Pat about it was, there are times where you don't know how many kids you're going to have at practice, or, maybe everybody's out for a middle school game or something, because here they split whether it's fall or spring. And I have a hard time thinking off the cuff like that, where it's like, oh crap, I have 7 kids. What do I do? And so for me, I do it more of like, okay, here's my plan. If I have 5 kids or 4 kids or 7 kids or whatever, like here's some like 1 or 2 that are in each of these little weird constraints that I have where, I don't, it's one of those like, oh crap, this just happened. Now I have something I can rely on that, hopefully doesn't happen too often. But if it does, I got some backup plans.
Yeah.
Okay. I know, right?
Yeah, no kidding, huh? Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you were in the session or not, because I think you were taking Cap 3, but Doug Beal said he had 6 drills, but each drill had hundreds of variations,
Yep.
which I thought, right away everybody started scrambling for, okay, what are my 6 drills? What are my 8 drills? Like you said, the only 7 drills you need, but then here are the hundreds of ways to change them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm contemplating trying to put together. I was watching one of Rob Gray's podcasts the other day, or YouTube
Yeah.
jobs, and I'm looking at it and listening to it. I'm going, he's explaining it really well, but it still needs to be digested for the average coach. And it's just like John's blog. I love John Kessel. God, he's been great to me, and he and Mike have taught me a lot. But I can't read all his stuff. It's just he's too prolific. I can't keep up with it. Plus, I don't read very well. I read very slowly, so it takes me forever. So this medium's great for me, and talking is great for me. But I'm trying to. I was talking with a different group, and they said, "Well, this is totally business oriented group. What are you trying to do in the next? What's your next thing you want to work on?" I'm like, I want to get the constraints led approach. I want to understand it better. I want to try to explain it at as easy a level as I can for other coaches and for me, really. It's just my way of learning it. But learning the ideas behind it and how to use them and how, maybe how not to use them. But I was listening to him and I'm going, yeah, I know you think that this is the boiled down version, but it still has so much stuff in it that needs to be translated that I'm going to at least try to translate it for myself and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, in volleyball, it's pretty. I mean, the very basics are anytime you take that pool noodle and split the court in half, that's constraints led approach rather than describing to them we're only going to play on this side or you can only hit line or rather than making a bunch of rules, you stick a pool noodle out there and say, all right, you're on that half, you're on that half. Or if you take a drill, for instance, just imagine your standard hitting lines drill where everybody's hitting on the left. Flip the whole court so that they're hitting on the right. That's a constraint. It really doesn't have to be described. It's just you're hitting over there now. That's those are some of the basics. Turn areas of the court on or off. We often turn off from the center line to the 10-foot line and to say that's out of bounds now. Um, so that makes it so that nobody can tip. It forces some other things to occur, but those are the basics of constraints. We could talk about that for hours. We could get somebody else on that knows more about that. I've got a couple of people That'd be an expert. So we're avoiding experts, I think.
Well, one of the things he did in this talk was he talked about strength and conditioning and, all of that. And, we tend to go, oh, conditioning. And it's like, no, that's not the right way to think about it. He said that conditioning, that general work gives you capability to then deal with the constraints maybe more effectively, probably more effectively if you have. So he wasn't saying don't do it. He was saying understand what it does and what it provides you, and then then you can better apply and determine what you want to do. And in season, do you want to spend an hour of practice a week conditioning when it's going to take you 3 months maybe to be able to realize the addition to your game of that, or do you want to play, and those kinds of things. So I thought that was really helpful. I'm trying to really digest all that stuff.
Well, I'm bringing it back
I
to
have to hop
topic.
off, by the way.
Oh, what's that?
Just gotta go.
I have to hop off because I got 9 hours
Oh.
of volleyball coming.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say we're probably up against our hour anyway,
We
but
are.
let's tie it up. I think those constraints, going back to our final or our original topic of having fun, I mean, that makes it more fun rather than having a bunch of rules or broken down drills. It's, hey, we're going to play, but here are the rules that you got to play by, or here's the court you have to play on, or whatever. That increases the fun.
It's true.
Anyway.
Well, thanks
for
being
coming
with us,
on, Sarah.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Good to have
and
you
for
on.
those of you watching this, we had a little timing thing, so we apologize that it's not live for you, but hopefully the replay will be helpful.
All my fault.
It's okay,
well,
BJ.
Not really.
It's okay. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
Sarah.
guys.
Have a fun day.
I'll try. Bye.